The cabin is a cage of her own making, a necessary one. 4 walls of rough-hewn pine, a stone hearth that breathes more smoke than warmth, and a single, grime-streaked window that looks out on nothing but indifferent trees. Alara measures her life in the silence between heartbeats. It's a vast, echoing expanse. Outside, the wind whispers through the spruce and fir, a lonely sound that burrows deep into her bones. It's a late autumn chill, the kind that promises a bitter winter. She welcomes it. The cold is a familiar ache, a physical match to the hollow space inside her ribs where her pride used to be. The rejection wasn't a clean break. It was a splintering, a shattering. Jorik's words still haunt the quiet hours, sharp and cruel as shards of glass. Weak, he'd called her that, his fated mate, the other half of his soul, and he'd looked at her with disgust. Her wolf, the spirit that should have been her strength, was a flickering candle in a hurricane, small, timid. On the day of her first shift, when other girls her age had transformed into powerful, formidable beasts, she had managed only a shivering, undersized creature that whimpered at its own shadow. An embarrassment, a flaw in the bloodline. The pack's alpha could not be mated to a flaw. So he'd severed the bond. A wrenching, violent act that had felt like tearing her soul in half. The pack, his pack, had turned their backs in unison. Their silence was worse than the insults. It was the quiet, polite closing of a door, leaving her on the wrong side, alone. So she ran. She ran until the scent of her pack was nothing but a sour memory, until the mountains rose up like a wall between her past and her present. This cabin, abandoned by some long-dead trapper, became her sanctuary and her prison. A place to be unseen, a place to slowly disappear. Tonight, the wind is more than a whisper. It's a howl. A furious, grieving sound that rattles the single pane of glass in its frame. A storm is coming. She can smell it on the air, the sharp, electric tang of ozone, the heavy scent of damp earth. She adds another log to the fire, watching the sparks fly up the chimney like frantic, dying stars. The motion is automatic, part of the small, meaningless routine that keeps her tethered to the world. Wake, forage, chop wood, stare into the fire, sleep, repeat. A life stripped down to its barest components. Survival, nothing more. The first sound is almost lost in the rising gale. A crack. Not thunder. Something sharper. Heavier. The sound of a great tree limb snapping. But there's a weight to it. A sickening thud of impact that follows. Alara freezes, her hand hovering over the woodpile. The forest around her is old and deep. Things move in the shadows. Things bigger than deer and faster than rabbits. She has learned to be small, to be quiet, to be invisible. Her instincts, honed by fear, scream at her. Bar the door, douse the light, pretend you are not here. Then comes another sound. This one cuts through the wind, thin and reedy. A cry. A sound of pure, unadulterated pain that has nothing to do with the storm. It's an animal. A large one, by the depth of it. Her heart, a sluggish, dormant thing, gives a painful lurch. She remembers lying on the cold stone floor of the great hall after Jorik had cast her out. She remembers the shuffling feet of her pack turning away. She remembers the profound, crushing silence of being left alone in her agony. No one came. The cry comes again, weaker this time, followed by a low, guttural moan that seems to vibrate through the very floorboards of the cabin. Curiosity is a luxury she can't afford. Compassion is a weakness she was punished for. But the memory of that silence, it's a ghost that pushes her forward. She won't be like them. She can't be. Grabbing the heavy iron poker from the hearth, its weight a flimsy comfort in her palm, she unlatches the door, The wind rips it from her grasp, slamming it back against the cabin wall with a deafening crash. Rain, hard and cold as pellets of ice, slashes at her face. The world outside is a churning chaos of darkness and noise. But her eyes, accustomed to the gloom, find it. A shape, a mass of darkness darker than the surrounding night, crumpled at the edge of the clearing not 50 feet from her door. It's a wolf. Her breath catches in her throat. A wave of primal fear washes over her, so potent it tastes like metal on her tongue. This is not a normal wolf. It's immense. A creature of myth, bigger than any she has ever seen, bigger even than the most powerful alpha shifters in her old pack. Its fur is the color of polished jet, seeming to drink the meager light from the storm. It's hurt badly. One of its legs is twisted at an unnatural angle, and a dark, viscous stain is spreading across its flank, steaming faintly in the cold air. Her mind screams at her. Fool. Close the door. This is how you die. A lone wolf, wounded and cornered, is the most dangerous thing in these woods. She takes a half step back, her hand tightening on the poker, and then she sees it. Something stirs beside the great beast. A smaller bundle of darkness. Not another animal. It's a flicker of movement. A shifting of furs? A tiny, piercing wail rises, momentarily cutting through the howl of the wind. A baby. Ilara's world tilts on its axis. It's a trap. It must be. A lure. Rogues were known for such cruel deceptions. Use the innocent to draw out the compassionate, then strike. But the giant wolf lifts its massive head, and in the gloom, she sees its eyes. They aren't the feral yellow of a wild animal. They are silver. A liquid, intelligent silver that seems to glow with its own internal light. It looks at her, not with aggression, but with a desperate, silent plea. Then its gaze shifts down to the whimpering bundle, and its head drops back to the wet earth with a groan of profound exhaustion. A protector, failing its duty. Ilara stands frozen in the doorway, the rain plastering her thin tunic to her skin, the wind howling its mockery of her indecision. Every logical part of her brain, every scar from her past, tells her to retreat into her cage and lock the door. Let the forest claim them. It is the way of things. The strong survive, the weak perish. Wasn't that the lesson she was supposed to have learned? But the baby cries again, a thin, helpless sound that tears through her carefully constructed apathy. It is the sound of being abandoned. And in that moment, the choice is no longer a choice. It's a rebellion. Damn it all, she whispers into the storm, the words ripped away by the wind. She will not be the one who turns away. She takes a step out into the rain. The decision settles in her bones, a heavy, terrifying stone of certainty. She drops the poker. A weapon would be an admission of hostility, and right now, her only currency is the fragile hope of trust. She moves slowly, her bare feet sinking into the cold mud. She keeps her hands open and visible, a gesture of peace she hopes the creature will understand. The giant wolf watches her approach, its silver eyes tracking her every movement. There is no growl, no baring of teeth, only a tense, waiting stillness. The sheer size of it is breathtaking. It's like approaching a fallen god. Its breath comes in ragged, shallow pants, each one sending up a puff of steam into the frigid air. "I'm not going to hurt you," she says, her voice small against the roar of the storm. She isn't sure if she's talking to the wolf or to the whimpering bundle beside it, or maybe to herself. She reaches them, rain dripping from her hair into her eyes. She kneels in the mud, ignoring the cold that seeps instantly through her clothes. First, the baby. She has to know. With trembling fingers, she gently pulls back the edge of the thick, oiled furs. Tucked inside is a small, round face, red with cold and crying. The child is tiny, no more than a few months old. It's wrapped tightly and seems miraculously to be dry and unharmed, just terrified and cold. Her gaze shifts to the wolf. Up close, the injury is horrifying. A deep, vicious gash runs along its ribs, torn open as if by claws of impossible size. It's not a hunter's wound. This was a fight. A battle. "Oh," she breathes, a sound of pure, horrified sympathy. "What happened to you?" The wolf whines low in its throat, a sound of such profound misery that it makes her own wounds ache in response. Her mind, suddenly clear and focused, kicks into a gear she'd forgotten she had, the part of her that was trained in herb lore and healing, skills taught to all pack females before she was deemed a failure. "Okay," she says, more firmly now. "Okay, I can help, but you can't stay out here. Neither of you can." The storm is worsening, the rain turning to sleet. To leave them here would be a death sentence, no matter how great the wolf's strength. She looks from the wounded animal to her small, warm cabin, her sanctuary, her one safe place in a world that had offered her none. Bringing this immense, unknown danger across her threshold feels like a violation of the highest order, a betrayal of the promise she made to herself to never trust again. The baby's cries soften into hiccuping sobs. It's watching her with wide, dark eyes. There is no other way. "All right, big guy," she murmurs, her voice taking on a soothing cadence. "I need you to get up. Can you do that for me? You have to get up. For him." She gestures to the baby. The wolf's silver eyes seem to understand. With a monumental effort, it begins to struggle, its powerful muscles trembling with strain. It tries to put weight on its injured side and collapses with a sharp cry of pain. No, lean the other way," she instructs, her hands hovering, useless against its sheer mass. "Lean on me if you have to." It's a ridiculous offer. She's a splinter next to this monolith of fur and muscle. But the wolf seems to get the idea. It shifts its weight, gathering its 3 good legs beneath it. With another groan that seems to shake the very ground, it staggers to its feet. It sways, unsteady, its head hanging low. "Good," she praises, her heart hammering against her ribs. "That's so good. Now, the baby." Carefully, she scoops up the warm, fur-wrapped bundle. The child is heavier than it looks. It settles against her chest with a final, shuddering sigh, its tiny face burrowing into her shoulder. A jolt, sharp and painful and wonderful, goes through her. It's a feeling she had long since buried, the phantom ache of empty arms. "Now, come on," she says to the wolf, her voice thick with emotion. "This way, slowly." She turns and begins the slow walk back to the cabin, the baby held tight against her. She doesn't look back, but she can hear it, the heavy, limping footfalls in the mud behind her, the ragged, pained breathing. He's following her. He's trusting her. Crossing her own threshold feels like stepping off a cliff. The warm, fire-scented air of the cabin wraps around them. She nudges the door shut with her foot, the latch clicking into place with a sound of utter finality. The world is shut out. The danger is shut in. The giant wolf limps past her and collapses onto the worn rag rug before the hearth, its side heaving. It lays its head on its paws and watches her, its silver eyes luminous in the firelight. It makes no move toward her. No sound of aggression. There is only pain, exhaustion, and a strange, unnerving watchfulness. Alara stands for a long moment, the baby warm in her arms, her home filled with the scent of wet fur, blood, and the wild unknown. The silence inside is now a living thing, charged with a terrifying and fragile truce. Her isolation is over. She doesn't know if she has just saved a life or ended her own. In the first few hours are a blur of frantic, focused activity. A dam has broken inside her, and years of stagnant apathy are washed away by a flood of purpose. First, the baby. She lays him on her own narrow bed, the softest place in the cabin. She unwraps the layers of fur, her fingers clumsy but gentle. Beneath it all, he's wearing a simple, hand-stitched linen tunic. He's clean, well cared for. Someone loved this child. The thought sends another pang through her chest. She checks him over from head to toe. No cuts, no bruises, just the angry red of cold on his cheeks and hands. He watches her with those solemn, dark eyes, not crying anymore, just observing. She finds an old, soft piece of wool and wraps him in it, tucking it snugly around him. There, she whispers. You're safe now. He needs to eat. She has nothing a baby would eat. Her pantry consists of dried meat, tough roots, and a small sack of oats. Panic, cold and sharp, nips at her heels. What good is saving him if she lets him starve? She finds a handful of dried berries, wizened and hard. She puts them in a small wooden bowl, adds a little boiled water from the kettle over the fire, and begins to mash them with the back of a spoon. It's a desperate, pathetic offering. A thin, purplish gruel. She props the baby up, her arm awkward around his little shoulders. I don't know if you'll even eat this, she murmurs, mostly to herself. It's probably awful. I'm sorry. She dips the tip of her finger into the mixture and brings it to his lips. He turns his head away at first. Then his tiny nose twitches. He licks his lips. His eyes widen. Tentatively, he opens his mouth. She gives him a little taste. He smacks his lips together, then opens his mouth again, this time with an insistent little noise. Her relief, so potent it makes her dizzy, floods through her. He eats. She feeds him tiny spoonfuls of the berry mush until the bowl is empty. He lets out a contented burp, and for the first time, the corner of his mouth quirks up in something that looks almost like a smile. Her heart cracks open just a little wider. She settles him back on the bed, and his eyes drift shut almost instantly, his small chest rising and falling in the steady rhythm of sleep. In her head, she gives him a name. Finn. It feels solid. Gentle. With Finn sleeping, she turns her attention to the other patient. The wolf hasn't moved. It lies by the fire, a mountain of silent suffering. The warmth from the hearth has dried its fur, making it stand out in a thick, luxurious pelt. But the blood on its flank has also dried, matting the fur and crusting around the edges of the terrible wound. It needs to be cleaned. She fills a bowl with warm water and grabs the cleanest rags she owns. Her healing kit is a small leather pouch containing a needle, sinew for thread, and a few jars of dried herbs. Yarrow to staunch bleeding, willow bark for pain, and a poultice of comfrey and moss for infection. It's all she has. Okay, she says softly, approaching him. This is probably going to hurt. A lot. But if we don't clean it, it will fester. She kneels beside him. The heat coming off his body is immense, like a furnace. She can smell the fever on him, a sickly sweet scent underneath the metallic tang of blood. His silver eyes are fixed on her. They are hazy with pain, but the intelligence within them is sharp, unwavering. It's like being scrutinized by an ancient, wise spirit. You have to let me do this, she says, her voice a plea. You have to trust me. As if in answer, he gives a low sigh and rests his head back on his paws, exposing the wounded side to her. It's an act of such profound trust that it steals her breath. Her hands tremble as she touches him for the first time, gently parting the matted fur around the gash. His skin is fever hot. The wound is deep, the flesh torn raggedly. She dabs at the edges with a wet cloth, trying to wipe away the dried blood. The wolf flinches, a tremor running through its entire body, and a pained whimper escapes its throat. But it doesn't move. It doesn't snap. It endures. I know, she soothes, her voice barely a whisper. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll be as quick as I can. She works for what feels like hours. cleaning the wound with a grim, methodical focus. She stitches the worst of it closed, her needle dipping in and out of the tough hide. It's clumsy work, ugly work, but it will hold. Finally, she packs the wound with her comfrey poultice, the cool, damp herbs, a stark contrast to his feverish skin. She binds it with strips of cloth, a makeshift bandage that looks flimsy against his massive torso. It's done. It's the best she can do. Exhaustion hits her like a physical blow. Her muscles ache. Her mind is numb. She sits back on her heels, her hands stained with his blood. The wolf lifts its head and nudges her hand with its cold, wet nose. It's a gesture of thanks. Simple, profound. Tears well in her eyes, hot and sudden. She doesn't brush them away. She spends the night in the rickety wooden chair, watching over them. The baby, Finn, sleeps soundly on her bed. The wolf sleeps fitfully by the fire, its breathing still shallow, its body still radiating a dangerous heat. The storm passes. The cabin grows quiet, filled only with the soft crackle of the fire and the sound of 3 lonely heartbeats in the vast, dark woods. Days bleed into one another, marked only by the rising and setting of a pale, watery sun. A new routine emerges, weaving itself around the needs of her 2 unexpected guests. Mornings are for Finn. She wakes to his soft coos and murmurs, a sound that has become the anchor of her day. She's become surprisingly adept at baby care. She mashes oats and roots into a palatable mush for him. She changes his soiled linens, washing them in the nearby stream and hanging them to dry by the fire. He is a remarkably calm baby. He watches her with a quiet intensity, his dark eyes seeming to hold an old soul's wisdom. He learns her face, her scent, her voice. When she picks him up, he gurgles and kicks his feet, a smile of pure, uncomplicated joy gracing his features. Each smile is a balm on her own fractured soul. Afternoons are for the wolf. His fever broke on the 2nd day, and the healing has begun. The speed of it is unnatural, impossible. The angry red around the wound has faded, and new healthy pink tissue is already forming beneath her poultices. A normal animal would be dead, or at best, laid up for weeks. This creature is different. He is an unnervingly intelligent patient. He allows her to change his dressings with a quiet stoicism, only flinching when the pain is sharpest. He drinks the willow bark tea she brews for him without complaint, lapping it from the bowl she sets before him. He watches her. Always. His silver eyes follow her as she moves about the small cabin, a silent, contemplative gaze. It's not threatening. It feels protective. When she stumbles over a loose floorboard, a low growl rumbles in his chest, not at her, but at the offending piece of wood. The silence of her life is gone, replaced by a strange new language, the baby's gurgles, the wolf's soft sighs, and, to her own surprise, the sound of her own voice. She talks to them. At first, it's just practical things. Time to eat, Finn, or let me see your side, big guy. But the cabin is small, and the hours are long. The words start to spill out of her, a slow leak from a vessel that has been filled with pressure for too long. He said I was weak, she whispers one afternoon, sitting by the fire, mending a tear in one of Finn's linen wraps. The wolf is lying nearby, seemingly dozing, but she knows he's listening. His ear twitches in her direction. My own mate. He was supposed to be the one person who saw all of me, and still, he was supposed to. She doesn't have to say love me. The word is too foreign, too painful to speak. My wolf, she's not like the others. She's small, she's afraid. And because of that, I was a flaw, something to be discarded. She stares into the flames, her needle still. They all just stood there, watched him do it, watched him break the bond. No one said a word. No one even looked at me after. It was like I had already died. The wolf makes a soft noise in his throat, a sound of profound sympathy. He shifts, dragging his massive body closer, until his head is resting on the floor just inches from her feet. She looks down at him, at the impossible silver of his eyes, and sees no judgment there, only a shared understanding of pain. She talks to Finn, too, as she rocks him to sleep. She tells him about the grandfather who taught her about herbs, his hands gentle and smelling of earth. She tells him about the taste of sun-warmed berries picked straight from the bush. She tells him all the good things she can remember, pulling them out of the dusty corners of her memory and polishing them until they shine. She is giving him a past she barely allows herself to have. One evening, a week after their arrival, she's changing the wolf's dressing. The wound is almost completely closed now, a puckered pink scar against his black hide. It's a miracle of biology. "You'll be able to leave soon," she says, her voice quiet. The thought sends a sharp, unexpected pang of loss through her. The cabin will be so quiet again. Too quiet. You'll need to get back to wherever you came from, back to his mother. At the mention of a mother, a deep, mournful sound rumbles in the wolf's chest. It's the saddest sound she has ever heard. He nudges her hand with his nose, then looks pointedly at Finn, sleeping peacefully on the bed. Then he looks back at her. The message is clear, a silent, heartbreaking story. There is no mother to return to. They are all each other has. And somehow, she has become a part of that. Fear has slowly, almost imperceptibly, been replaced by comfort. The presence of the great wolf is no longer a source of anxiety, but a steady, grounding weight in her small world. She sleeps on a pallet of furs on the floor now, having surrendered her bed to Finn. She often wakes in the middle of the night to find the wolf has positioned himself between her and the door. A silent, vigilant guardian. She feels safer with this wild, mysterious creature than she ever did surrounded by her own kind. One night, she's woken by a nightmare. She's back in the Great Hall. Jorik's face twisted in contempt, the pack's eyes cold and empty. She wakes with a gasp, a sob caught in her throat, her body trembling. A cold nose presses against her cheek. She opens her eyes to find the wolf's massive head right beside her, his silver eyes glowing softly in the dim light from the dying embers. He whines gently, a question and a comfort all in one. Without thinking, she reaches out. Her hand, small and pale against his dark fur, sinks into the thick ruff of his neck. His fur is softer than she imagined, thick and warm. He doesn't pull away. Instead, he leans into her touch. A low rumble of something that sounds suspiciously like a purr vibrating through his chest. She strokes his head, her fingers tracing the strong bones beneath the fur. The trembling in her body subsides, replaced by a profound sense of peace. Here, in the dark, with a monster for a guardian and a borrowed baby for a charge, she feels a flicker of something she thought was lost forever. A sense of belonging. Her fragile peace is shattered 2 weeks after their arrival. It's a cold, bright afternoon. Alara is outside, chopping wood, a task she has come to find meditative. The rhythmic thud of the axe is a satisfying counterpoint to the quiet of the forest. The wolf is lying in the sun-drenched doorway of the cabin, watching her, while Finn naps inside. And she doesn't hear him approach. He moves with a shifter's predatory grace, a skill she had once admired. Now, it just feels like a violation. "I knew I'd find you in a hovel like this." The voice slices through the air, sharp and contemptuous. "Jorik." Alara freezes, the axe held halfway in its swing. She turns slowly, her heart a cold, heavy stone in her chest. He stands at the edge of the clearing, arms crossed over his broad chest. He looks just as she remembers, handsome, powerful, and radiating an arrogance that chills her to the bone. He's alone, for now. "What do you want, Jorik?" she asks, her voice flat, devoid of the emotion churning inside her. "I came to bring you home," he says, as if it's the most reasonable thing in the world, as if he hadn't been the one to cast her out. She lets out a short, bitter laugh. Home? I don't have a home. Don't be dramatic, Alara. Your place is with the pack, in with me. His eyes roam over her, taking in her simple, patched tunic, the smudges of dirt on her face. A look of distaste flickers across his features. This pathetic exile is over. I'm willing to overlook your weakness. I'll take you back. He speaks of it like a magnanimous gift. The sheer audacity of it steals her breath. He broke her, and now he wants to claim ownership of the pieces. No, she says. The word is quiet, but it's as solid and unmoving as the mountains around them. Jorik's face darkens. No, you don't get to say no to me. You are my mate. You severed that bond, she reminds him, her voice gaining strength. You made your choice. Now live with it. He takes a step forward, his predatory nature coming to the forefront. I can re-establish the bond. A mark will set it right. You just need to be reminded of your place. Before she can react, a movement at the cabin door catches his eye. Finn, woken by their voices, has crawled to the threshold. He sits there, blinking in the bright sun, a small, curious figure. Jorik stops. His eyes narrow. What is that? Alara instinctively moves to place herself between him and the cabin. Whose is it? He demands, a cruel, mocking sneer twisting his lips. Found a stray to mother, have you? Always so desperate to fix broken things. How pathetic. The word hangs in the air between them. Pathetic. A sound erupts from the cabin doorway, a sound that is not of the natural world. It starts as a low rumble, a vibration that seems to shake the very air. It builds in pitch and volume until it's a full-throated, guttural growl of pure, unrestrained fury. The great black wolf rises to its full, terrifying height. It's one thing to see him lying down, wounded and passive. It's another thing entirely to see him like this. He is a creature of nightmare and legend. His shoulders are broader than a man's, his head immense. His lips pull back from his teeth, revealing fangs as long and sharp as daggers. The scar on his side, a silver line against the black of his fur, only makes him look more fearsome. He moves with a fluid, terrifying grace, stepping out of the cabin to stand directly between Alara and Jorik. He doesn't look at her. His entire being, every ounce of his lethal intent, is focused on the man who dared to threaten her. Jorik freezes. His arrogance evaporates, replaced by a primal, instinctive fear. He is an alpha shifter, one of the most powerful in his pack, but he is dwarfed by the beast before him. He has never seen a wolf this large, this ancient. What in the hells, he breathes, taking an involuntary step back. The black wolf takes a silent step forward. It doesn't bark or snap. The silence is more terrifying than any noise could be. It is a promise of swift, brutal violence. Jorik is no fool. He recognizes a power far greater than his own. He glances from the wolf, to Alara's defiant face, to the baby watching from the doorway. Something clicks in his mind, a flash of jealous, possessive rage. This isn't over, he snarls, his bravado a thin, brittle shell. I will be back with the pack. We'll see how your pet handles a dozen shifters. He turns and disappears back into the trees, his retreat hasty and undignified. The moment he is gone, the tension snaps. The great wolf sways on its feet. A whimpering cry of pain escapes its throat. Alara looks down and sees it. The confrontation, the sudden surge of adrenaline and power, has been too much for its still healing body. The scar on its flank has torn open. Fresh, bright red blood is welling up, staining its black fur. He stumbles, his legs giving way, and collapses to the ground with a heavy, final thud. No, Alara cries, rushing to his side. He's panting, his silver eyes clouded with agony. He protected her. He defended her and Finn, and it has cost him dearly. A wave of fierce, protective rage washes over her. Rage at Jorik. Rage at a world that only takes and breaks. She drops to her knees beside the wolf, ignoring the blood that is now seeping into the dirt. She sees the way his body is trembling, the way his gaze flickers toward the forest where Jorik disappeared. He is still trying to protect her, even now, broken and bleeding on the ground. Without a second thought, she does the only thing she can. She throws her own body over his, shielding his wounded form as if she could protect him from the entire world with her small frame. She presses her hands against the reopened gash, trying to staunch the bleeding. The hot, sticky wetness soaks her palms, her sleeves. "It's okay," she whispers, her voice thick and trembling, her cheek pressed against his fur. The scent of him wild and clean, like pine needles and ozone fills her senses. "He's gone. I'm here. I won't let him hurt you. I won't let anyone hurt you again." She holds him, pouring all of her own pain, her own history of being defenseless, into this one desperate act of protection. She is no longer the victim. She is the shield. In that moment, as she offers her own life for his, something fundamental in the universe shifts. A light begins to glow beneath her hands. At first, she thinks it's a trick of her tear-filled eyes, a faint silvery luminescence that seems to be emanating from the wolf's body. But it grows brighter, stronger, pulsing with a gentle, rhythmic beat. It's warm, a soothing heat that spreads through her palms and up her arms. The world seems to fall away. The sounds of the forest, the chill in the air, her own ragged breathing, it all fades into a humming silence. There is only the light, enveloping them both in a cocoon of shimmering energy. She feels a strange, powerful tremor run through the massive body beneath her. It's not a shudder of pain, it's a deep, seismic shifting. She hears a sound that makes the hair on her arms stand on end, the sickening, distinct crack and pop of bones rearranging themselves. Fur seems to melt away under her hands, receding like a tide. The broad, powerful planes of a wolf's torso contract and reform into the smoother, leaner lines of a man's back. The massive head beneath her cheek elongates, the snout shortening, the skull reshaping. Panic and awe war within her. She wants to pull away, to run, but she is frozen, mesmerized by the impossible transformation happening beneath her touch. The light flares one last time, a brilliant, blinding flash of silver, and then it's gone. The silence that follows is absolute. Slowly, shakily, Alara lifts her head. Where the giant black wolf lay, there is now a man. He's lying on his side, curled in the same position the wolf had been. He's naked, his skin pale in the afternoon light, corded with the hard muscle of a warrior. A raw, angry scar, her own clumsy stitches stark against his flesh mars, the perfection of his torso. Long, straight black hair, the color of a raven's wing, is splayed out in the dirt around his head. He groans, a human sound of pain, and shifts, turning over onto his back. And Alara looks into his face. It's a face carved from granite and moonlight. Strong jaw, high cheekbones, a mouth that looks like it has forgotten how to smile. And his eyes, they are the same impossible, luminous silver. They blink open, hazy with pain and disorientation, and fix on her. Alara scrambles backward, her mind a screaming void of disbelief. Shifter, he's a shifter, like her people. But not like her people. The power that rolled off him, the sheer scale of the transformation, it's something else entirely. Something older, stronger. He tries to push himself up on one elbow, hissing as the movement pulls at the wound on his side. "Finn," he rasps, his voice a low, gravelly sound, rough with disuse. He coughs, his gaze darting frantically toward the cabin. "My son? Is he safe?" The words, the concern in his voice, cut through her shock. "My son. He's safe," she manages to say, her own voice a thin, reedy thing. "He's inside, sleeping. The relief washes over the man's harsh features, softening them for a moment. He slumps back to the ground, his energy spent. He looks at her, truly looks at her, and the intensity in his silver gaze makes her feel as though he can see every secret she has ever kept. "Thank you," he says, and the words are imbued with a depth of gratitude that feels ancient and absolute. "You saved us. You saved us both." Her mind is reeling, trying to piece it all together. The crash in the storm, the fight that wounded him, his impossible healing, his son. What are you?" she asks, the question a whisper. He closes his eyes for a moment, gathering his strength. "My name is Kael." He opens them again, pinning her with his gaze. "I am the Alpha of the Shadow Moon Pack from over the Great Ridge." Shadow Moon. The name is a legend, a myth whispered around campfires. A pack of shifters, so old and powerful, they were said to be descended from the spirit wolves themselves. They kept to themselves, shrouded in mystery. No one from her pack had ever seen one. "We were attacked," Kael continues, his voice strained. "Rogues. More than I've ever seen. They ambushed us on our own territory. My mate, Finn's mother, she fell trying to protect him." The grief in his voice is a raw, open wound. "I took my son and I ran. They followed. I didn't know where I was going. I only knew I had to get him to safety." He pauses, his silver eyes searching her face, as if looking for an answer to a question he hasn't asked yet. "Then the pain, the blood loss. I was losing my way. I prayed. Not to any god. To the moon. To fate. To whatever would listen. I asked for a safe harbor, for a flicker of hope in the dark." He pushes himself up again, this time with more success, sitting up and leaning his back against the cabin wall. He ignores his nakedness, his vulnerability. His entire focus is on her. And then I felt it, a pull, a light in the distance that only my soul could see. It guided me here, to you. Alara's heart is hammering a frantic, unsteady rhythm against her ribs. A pull? A light? She felt it too, didn't she? That strange sense of connection, of rightness, that settled over her the moment she saw him. "I don't understand," she says, shaking her head. Kael's expression is one of profound, weary certainty. He looks at her, and in his eyes, she sees the echo of every moment they have shared, her fear turning to compassion, her gentle hands tending his wounds, her voice confessing her deepest pains, her body shielding his. "The bond," he says softly, his voice resonating with a power that seems to settle deep in her bones. "The one Jork broke. It wasn't the true bond. It was a pale echo, a mistake of fate." He reaches out a hand, not to touch her, but as an offering. "The moon did not guide me to a random stranger, Alara. She guided me to the other half of my own soul. She guided me to my mate." The word hangs in the air between them, heavy, with a meaning she is only just beginning to comprehend. Mate. It's not an accusation. It's not a claim of ownership. It's a revelation. A truth that settles over the chaos of her mind and makes everything suddenly, terrifyingly clear. The comfort she felt in his presence. The inexplicable sense of safety. The way her own soul seemed to quiet when he was near. It wasn't just gratitude or pity. It was the bond. A real one. A powerful one. Humming beneath the surface of their every interaction. And he had felt it too, from the very beginning. As a wolf, he had recognized her. Disorientation gives way to a slow, creeping terror, not of him, but of the implication. She, the weak one, the flawed one, the outcast, mated to this, to an alpha of a legendary pack? A man who was so powerful he was practically a myth? It's impossible. It's a cruel joke. "No," she whispers, the denial automatic. She scrambles to her feet, putting distance between them. You're wrong, I can't be. She can't say the word weak. The taste of it is too bitter. Kael watches her, his expression pained. He doesn't try to argue. He just sits there, bleeding and broken and magnificent, letting the truth of his words sink into her. The cabin door creaks open. Finn, rubbing the sleep from his eyes, crawls out onto the porch. He sees his father, his true father, sitting there in his human form for the first time. There is no fear, no confusion, only recognition. A happy gurgle escapes his lips. He crawls directly to Kael, pulling himself up on his father's leg, patting his knee with a chubby hand. Kael looks down at his son, and a wave of such profound love and relief passes over his face that it makes Alara's chest ache. He gently strokes Finn's soft hair, his large warrior's hand impossibly gentle. Then he looks back up at Alara, his silver eyes pleading. The scene before her is one of perfect, painful belonging. A father and a son, reunited, and her the stranger, the outsider, looking on. It's the story of her life. But this time, something is different. This time, she's not being pushed out. She's being invited in. Into the aftermath of the revelation is a space of charged, fragile silence. Alara brings Kael a pair of her deceased father's old trousers and a tunic. They are too small, stretching tight across his broad shoulders and ending well above his wrists and ankles, but he puts them on without comment, his gratitude palpable. She cleans and redresses his wound, her hands moving with a mechanical steadiness that belies the turmoil in her mind. Touching his human skin is different, intimate. She can feel the warmth of him, the solid reality of the man beneath her fingers. Her touch is professional, detached, but every brush of her hand against his skin sends a jolt through her system. He is racked with guilt. It radiates from him in waves, a heavy, suffocating presence in the small cabin. I've brought danger to your door, he says, his voice low. He's sitting on the edge of her bed, Finn cradled in his lap, asleep now, his small head resting against his father's chest. That man, Jorik, he'll be back, he said so. I know, she replies, her voice tight. She's organizing her herbs, lining up the small clay pots on the mantelpiece with obsessive precision. Anything to keep her hands busy, anything to avoid looking at him. He'll bring his pack, Kael continues, his voice grim. They will see me as a threat, an invader, and you, they will see you as a traitor. Oh, he's right. She knows he is. Sheltering an enemy alpha is the highest form of treason. They wouldn't just cast her out this time. They would kill her. I cannot ask you to face that, Kael says, his voice thick with self-recrimination. I cannot bring that upon you, you who have only shown me kindness. He's building a wall between them, brick by painful brick. He is trying to protect her, to absolve her of any connection to him and his fate. He is preparing to leave. You were hurt, he says, by a mate who was supposed to protect you. He threw you away because he thought you were weak. He looks at her then, his silver eyes blazing with an intensity that stops her breath. He was a fool. I have been in your home for 2 weeks, and I have seen more strength in you than in any warrior I have ever known. The words are meant to be a gift, a validation, but they feel like a farewell. As soon as I have my strength back, he says, the final brick locking into place, Finn and I will be gone. We will draw them away from you. You'll be safe here. And then what, she thinks, a bitter, hysterical laugh bubbling in her throat? Back to her cage? Back to the silence? And the cold and the slow creeping numbness? Back to measuring her life in the empty spaces between heartbeats? He thinks he is saving her. He doesn't realize he is condemning her to the very fate she just escaped. Something inside her, a long dormant ember of defiance that was fanned into flame by Jorik's cruelty, now roars to life. She turns from the mantelpiece, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. No, she says. He looks up, startled by the force in her voice. You don't get to do that. she says, her voice low and trembling with a strength she didn't know she possessed. You don't get to walk into my life, turn it upside down, make me feel again, and then walk away for my own good. She takes a step closer, her eyes locked with his. You think leaving me here is saving me? This isn't safety, Kale. This is a prison, a slow death. I was already dying here before you fell out of the sky. She gestures wildly around the small, sparse cabin. You talk about Jorik. You think I'm afraid of him? I'm not that broken girl anymore. I looked him in the eye and I told him no. And you want me to go back to being that person? The one who hides from the world? The one who lets others decide her fate? Her voice cracks, but she pushes on, fueled by a righteous, desperate anger. I made a choice. I chose to bring you in. I chose to help you. I chose to stand against him. That was my choice. Don't you dare try to take it away from me. He stares at her, his silver eyes wide with shock and something else. Something that looks like awe. He has seen her compassion, her gentleness. He is seeing her fire for the first time. You think I'm weak? She asks. The question a raw, painful echo of Jorik's accusation. But this time, it's a challenge, not a surrender. My strength isn't in the size of my wolf or the sharpness of my claws. My strength is here. She presses a hand to her heart. It's the part of me that refused to become as cruel as the people who hurt me. It's the part of me that saw you and your son and chose to help, even when I was terrified. Do not insult that strength by treating me like a fragile doll that needs to be sheltered. The silence that follows is thick with unspoken emotions. Kale is speechless, stripped of his noble intentions by the raw, undeniable truth of her words. In the quiet, Finn stirs. He wakes up, not with a cry, but with a happy, sleepy sigh. He looks from his father's face to Alara's, his two protectors, his entire world. He wriggles out of Kale's arms and crawls across the small space on the bed that separates them. He stops right between them. He looks at Alara, then reaches up, his small, chubby hand patting her knee, the same gesture he gave his father. Then he turns and does the same to Kale. He babbles happily, a string of nonsensical, joyful sounds, and then lays his head down on the bedding between them, as if to say, here, together, this is right. The simple, innocent act breaks the last of the tension. It shatters Kael's resolve. He looks at Alara, and the walls he had built are gone. His silver eyes are raw, vulnerable, filled with a painful, desperate longing that mirrors her own. I have felt your heart since the moment I first saw you through the storm, he whispers, his voice thick with emotion. I felt your loneliness as if it were my own. I felt your kindness like the sun on my face after a long winter. When you spoke of your pain, my own soul ached. When you shielded my body with yours, you claimed me, Elara. In a way no bond or mark ever could. He says her name. And it's not just a sound, it's a prayer. It's the key that unlocks the last closed door in her heart. I love you, he says, the words torn from the deepest part of him. I think I have loved you my entire life, and I was just waiting to find you. The confession undoes her. Tears she didn't know she was holding back spill over, tracing hot paths down her cheeks. They are not tears of sadness or fear. They are tears of profound, overwhelming relief. She closes the small distance between them, kneeling on the floor in front of him. She raises a trembling hand and cups his face, her thumb brushing away a tear he didn't seem to know had fallen. His skin is rough with stubble, warm and real beneath her touch. I thought I was broken beyond repair, she whispers. You and Finn, you didn't fix me. You just showed me I was never broken at all. He leans into her touch, his eyes closing as if in surrender. Alara. And then he leans forward, and she meets him halfway. The kiss is not one of frantic passion or desperate conquest. It is a homecoming. It's the quiet, certain click of two souls locking into place. It's the taste of salt from their shared tears, the scent of wood smoke and pine, the feeling of rightness, of absolute, unquestionable belonging. It's the end of the silence. It is the beginning of everything. 6 months later. The air here smells different. It's cleaner, sharper. It smells of high-altitude pines, cold river stone, and the subtle, living scent of a thriving pack, a scent of home. Alara stands on a wide wooden balcony that overlooks a valley, cradled by the jagged peaks of the Great Ridge. This is Shadowfell, the heart of the Shadow Moon Pack's territory. It's not a collection of crude huts, but a town, ingeniously built into the cliffs and trees, connected by sturdy rope bridges and winding stone staircases. It's a place of harmony, of strength, of deep, abiding peace. A warm weight settles on her shoulders. It's Kale's favorite wool cloak, heavy and smelling of him. He comes to stand behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, pulling her back against the solid warmth of his chest. He rests his chin on her shoulder, his breath a warm puff against her ear. "Are you ready?" he murmurs. "No," she answers honestly, a small, nervous smile playing on her lips. "But I will be. Tonight is the ceremony." Her formal welcome as Kyle's mate, as the pack's Luna. The thought is still dizzying. A wild, impossible dream made real. They didn't stay to fight Jorik. The morning after their confession, as the sun rose, Kale, in his wolf form, had carried her and Finn on his back. They ran for a day and a night, moving with supernatural speed, until they reached the hidden paths that led into the Shadow Moon territory. His warriors met them at the border, their joy and relief at seeing their alpha and his son alive a powerful, emotional tide. They had looked at her, the strange woman with him, not with suspicion, but with a deep, knowing respect. They had sensed the bond between her and their alpha. They had seen the truth in his eyes. She had been welcomed, not as a weak stray, but as the woman who had saved their future. Her own wolf, her small, timid spirit, was not a source of shame here. They saw it as a sign of her humanity, of the compassion that had allowed her to look past the fearsome beast to the man and child in need. Her perceived flaw was her greatest virtue. Finn, now a chubby, babbling toddler, is in the arms of an elderly pack member named Lyra, who adores him as if he were her own grandson. He is the pack's joy, a symbol of their survival and their new beginning. And Alara is learning to breathe again, learning to unclench the fist that has been wrapped around her heart for years. She is loved. She is respected. She is home. But the past has long shadows. A commotion at the main gate of the valley draws their attention. A sentry's horn blows a short, sharp note not of attack, but of challenge. Kale stiffens against her. "He's here," he says, his voice a low growl. "I know." Jorik. He and 2 of his most loyal pack members stand at the border, demanding entry, demanding an audience. Pride and wounded ego had driven him across the mountains, chasing a ghost. "Stay here," Kale says, his protective instincts flaring. "No," she says softly, placing her hand over his on her waist. "We face him together. I need to do this." He looks down at her, sees the quiet strength in her eyes, and nods. They walk, hand in hand, down the winding path to the valley floor. The pack members they pass part for them, their gazes steady and supportive. They are a wall of silent strength at her back. Jorik is waiting, his face a mask of bitter fury. When he sees them, his eyes lock on Alara. He takes in her appearance, the healthy glow in her cheeks, the fine, warm clothes she wears, the confident way she carries herself. He sees the massive, powerful alpha at her side, their hands linked in an unbreakable chain. He sees everything he lost, everything he threw away. "Alara," he says, his voice strained. "He has bewitched you. This is not you. Come home. Alara looks at the man who shattered her world. She feels no fear, no anger, only a profound, weary pity. He is trapped in his own pride, his own narrow definition of strength. He will never know the power of compassion, the strength of a bond built on mutual healing. I am home, Jorik, she says, her voice clear and steady, carrying in the crisp mountain air. She doesn't need to raise her voice. She doesn't need to defend herself. Her happiness, her peace, her place here beside Kaylit is the only answer required. He sees it then, the finality, the absolute truth that she is lost to him forever. He sees the pack members of Shadowmoon watching him, their faces calm but unyielding. He sees Kale, whose sheer presence is a silent, overwhelming threat. He sees Finn, who has been brought down by Lyra. The toddler sees Alara and Kael and lets out a joyful shriek of Mama, Papa, toddling toward them on unsteady legs. Alara lets go of Kael's hand and stoops to scoop the boy into her arms. He hugs her neck tightly, burying his face in her hair. Kael moves to her side, his hand resting on the small of her back, the other gently stroking his son's head. A family. Whole. Complete. Happy. It is a tableau of everything Jorik can never have. His face crumples, the fury replaced by the stark, ugly face of defeat. Without another word, he turns, his shoulders slumped, and walks away, his followers trailing behind him like shadows. He is returning to his world of posturing and pride, a world that now seems small and empty. Alara watches him go, holding Finn tight. She feels the ghost of her old life fade away completely, leaving not even a scar behind. The sun is setting, painting the snow-capped peaks in hues of rose and gold. The ceremony will begin soon. Kale turns her to face him, his silver eyes shining with a love so fierce and tender it still makes her ache. It's over, he says softly. It's just beginning, she replies, a true smile finally reaching her eyes. Later, under a canopy of 1,000,000 stars, and the bright, knowing face of the full moon, she stands beside him. The pack is gathered, a sea of faces illuminated by torchlight. They are her family now. Her protectors, her friends. Kale takes her hand. I present to you Alara of Shadowmoon, he says, his voice ringing with pride. My mate, my heart, our Luna. A great cheer rises from the pack, a sound of joy and welcome that echoes through the valley. She looks out at them all, her hand in Kale's, Finn watching from Lyra's arms, his eyes wide with wonder. She thinks of the small, lonely cabin in the woods. She thinks of the woman who lived there, a ghost haunting the ruins of her own life. She was so sure she was broken. She believed her greatest wound was a fatal flaw, a mark of her own weakness. But that wound was what kept her heart open. It was the crack that let the light in. Her refusal to be indifferent, her insistence on compassion in the face of her own fear, that was her true strength, the core of her spirit. She wasn't weak. She was just waiting. Waiting for a wounded wolf and a lost little boy to fall from the sky. Waiting for the half of her soul that had been searching for her across mountains and through storms. She looks up at Kale, at the love shining in his silver eyes, and she knows, with a certainty that settles deep in her bones, that she is no longer an outcast. She is home.